Hi everyone, my name is Zoranne and welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy to have you here, and today I'm going to be talking about all of the books I read in February. I only read 3 this month, which is a little on the lower side for me, so I'll actually be talking about my current reads as well as some books that are on my priority TBR for March. The first book I read was the February pick for Fantasy and Friends, and it was The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. I was so excited to read this with the club this month. This is one of the books that I wanted to read in my video about 23 books I wanted to read in 2023. So the fact that this was picked, not a shocker to me. Honestly, I was pleasantly surprised. I knew I was going to like it going into it because it has it's multi-POV, there's an animal companion, it's fast-paced, and there's also a really cool magic system. But what I did not expect is how much my club loved this. Nearly all of the reviews that were pouring in once a club member finished the book, it was either 4, 4.5, or even 5 stars, and people were saying that they found their new favorite fantasy series. That is just such a good feeling, knowing that yes, I picked a good one. But also, I did something really cool, and I was able to coordinate a Zoom call with Andrea Stewart, and I actually sat down with her over the weekend for about an hour, and we just talked about all things The Bone Shard Daughter and her career as an author, and that was just a really cool experience. So in The Bone Shard Daughter, like I said, we're following a cast of characters, but there's 2 main points of view that we're following, and one is Lynn. She is the Emperor's heir, and the Emperor basically runs the Empire on this thing called Bone Shard magic, where basically every year in this archipelago of islands, there's these things called tithing festivals, where kids basically line up and they cut a piece of bone from behind their ear, and then the Emperor stores those bone shards, uses them to carve in essentially commands for what they have in this world called constructs, and those are basically beings, creatures, almost like sentient objects to perform tasks and do things around the Empire. So basically we're watching Lynn trying to complete a set of tasks to prove her worth to her father, the Emperor, alongside with her kind of foster brother Bayan, as he is also in the running to be his heir, even though Lynn is blood related to the Emperor. And so we've got a little bit of political machinations going on there. Our other POV is Jovis, and he is a smuggler with a heart of gold. He insists that he's a bad person, but he can't turn down someone in need, and he was such a fun POV to read from. One of the reasons is because at the beginning of the book, he comes across a stray creature who looks like a kitten, but it actually turns out to be nothing like a kitten at all, and that becomes who we all know and love, Mephi. And he is this animal companion that stays along Jovis's side throughout the entirety of the book, and he is just so freaking cute. I really enjoyed the pacing of this book. I thought writing from multiple points of view worked really well, because you get almost you get to zoom out and get this bigger scope of what the world is like, especially for people who are upper class versus someone like Jovis who's a smuggler. And there's even another point of view from a person who's in the farther reaches of the Empire, who's just it's kind of seeing what are their issues that they're dealing with day in day life, and how they all kind of want a better world, but they all have their own ideas of what the solution could be. Meanwhile, chaos is erupting, constructs are malfunctioning, and nobody knows what's going on. But it was a really cool novel. It definitely sparked a lot of discussion for the club, and I liked it so much that I started the second book right away, and that's one of my current reads right now, which is The Bone Shard Emperor. The second book I read this month was Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn. This is a beloved YA fantasy series. The first book is Legendborn, and Bloodmark picks up right where Legendborn leaves off. I felt like I kept putting this book off. One, because second books kind of scare me. You never know if they're going to be a hit or miss. You all run into a second book where it feels like a filler book, or you hit the second book slump. The second reason is because I was afraid I was going to see a spoiler online. Thank gosh I didn't, because oh my god, was this book such a ride. It did not have the second book slump. So much happened. It was pretty much action from start to finish. It really packs a punch. I feel like I can't talk about this too much without spoiling y'all, but in this book, Bloodmarked, Bree is dealing with a lot. We spend our time reading and watching Bree come into her own and facing the several burdens she carries. There's a line in the acknowledgments from Tracy Deonn that I feel like sums up Bloodmarked perfectly and can put into better words than I could ever have, but it says, Bree, like many of us, lives the challenge of honoring the path her ancestors walked while doing her best to forge a new one. And that is really kind of like this thesis statement of Bloodmarked. She's a part of the Order now, so she's dealing with with the repercussions of that, while also trying to honor her ancestors and grieve her mother and find her friends. And there's just so much going on, and Bree has to deal with so much for just a 16-year-old girl. And the ending had me gasping for air. I needed book 3. We all need book 3. There was a Twitter thread I was following of some fans trying to guess what Legendborn 3 could be called, and there were a few guesses like Shadowborn and I can't remember the other one, but my guess for the title of book 3 is going to be Oathbound. Let me know what you think about that. And the third book I read this month, I actually finished this morning on audio, and it is Children of Fallen Gods by Carissa Broadbent. Book 2 in the War of Lost Hearts series. The first book being Daughter of No Worlds, which I read and loved last month. And book 2 did not disappoint. Holy crap, was this an emotional roller coaster. There's just something about Carissa Broadbent's writing that is just so addictive and unputdownable. But basically, book 2 picks up right where Daughter of No Worlds leaves off, and I obviously don't want to spoil you, but if you're in the market for a new fantasy romance series that is equal parts fantasy and romance and balances the two really well, I cannot recommend this series enough. I know people have been reading Carissa Broadbent's books to kind of like scratch that Throne of Glass itch, and it's the only thing that's come close to them, and I definitely see why, because her writing is addictive and her characters are so lovable. And I think Carissa does a really great job at nailing really emotional and tender moments between her characters, especially the two main characters. And it makes you yearn and want to come back to more because you are really rooting for them amidst the chaos. My one critique, and it's not really that big of a deal for the series, is that I do feel like there are some like pacing beats that Carissa Broadbent misses, but it's honestly, it's kind of negligible. I feel like the magic system that she has created, there's 2 of them, that definitely needs to be a little more fleshed out in my opinion, because I do find myself having questions while I'm reading, and I've read almost 1,000 pages into the series between the first 2 books, and I still feel like I don't have a good grasp of the magic systems. And I feel like that can be like just honestly fixed with editing, or maybe I'm missing something, I don't know, because I am like doing a little bit of ebook and a little bit of audiobook, so I like some details can get lost in translation for me. But other than that, it's a really solid series, and I'm guessing I'm going to be reading the 3rd book, Mother of Death and Dawn, in March. As for current reads, I'm not going to spend too much time on these because I kind of have talked about them online a lot already, and you'll see them in a wrap-up next month. But I am still making my way through A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. By the time you're watching this video, it will already be out. I am about at the 60% mark, and I feel like I lost momentum. Not because of me, but because reading the physical book without any accommodations can be a little bit challenging for me sometimes, and I think I'm just going to download the audiobook either from my library or Audible, whichever one comes first, at midnight, just so I can finish it, because I am going to be seeing Samantha Shannon on tour this week for A Day of Fallen Night, and I cannot wait to meet her and tell her how much I love this. And the other book I'm reading right now is The Bone Shard Emperor by Andrea Stewart. This is the sequel to The Bone Shard Daughter. Based on how The Bone Shard Daughter ended, I just had to know what happened next. Like, I needed to keep the momentum going because the 3rd book in the trilogy, The Bone Shard War, comes out on April 18th, and I need to be ready for it because bad things are happening and nobody knows what's going on, and that is just how I like it. Stressed, a little depressed, and it's just such a fun series. You want to read something that is really fast-paced and has a unique magic system, I cannot recommend this trilogy enough. You won't regret it. The next few books I'm going to show are on my priority TBR for March. And I usually don't make a TBR pile because I suck at them and I'm a mood reader, but like we've got some deadlines that I have to hit for work and personal reasons. And the first book I will be reading in March, no doubt about it, is The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. This is the book that Fantasy and Friends voted to read together in March, and we'll be starting this together on the Fable app on March 1st, and I cannot wait. I feel like I've been bullied by mutuals and followers on TikTok and Instagram alike saying, Zoranne, you need to read this already. And I say, I'll get to it. And when I say I'll get to it, I have no idea when I'm going to read it, but now Fantasy and Friends is forcing me to read it. Our theme poll for the month was dragons, so obviously I had to pick something with dragons, and I'm not surprised this one. I heard it's more like a military style fantasy. It's African inspired. We've got dragons, we've got war, we've got rage. I can't wait. I just can't wait to read all of your thoughts and feelings on it on the Fable app. It's gonna be so much fun. Next books we've got on the docket are The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi, which is a new book in Shannon Chakraborty's new epic fantasy series set 600 years before the Daevabad trilogy. It follows our main character, Amina al-Sarafi. She's a pirate, she's an older woman, she says that she's retired, but she's got one last job to make it to reach fame and glory, and she's down for it. I am excited to read this. I do have an audiobook arc waiting on my phone for me, and I keep telling myself I'm gonna start it, but I feel like I can't start this until I finish A Day of Fallen Night, so like that's why this is on hold. But I have a feeling that 2023 is going to be the year of the pirate. I'm super excited to read this, and I think I'll get to it in March, but if I don't, then I don't. And also by Shannon Chakraborty, I have The City of Brass, which is the first book in Daevabad trilogy, which is a Middle Eastern inspired epic fantasy series that people have been yelling at me to read for like over a year now, and I keep telling myself that I'm gonna read it, but I just haven't. But now I'm gonna do it in March, and you wanna know why I'm gonna do it? I'm gonna do it because I am gonna be in like a 3-person buddy read and me and 2 other friends, we decided to each pick a book in our favorite genres that no one else had read, and we were gonna read it, the first book, in March. So I'm gonna read City of Brass. While I read it, I'm gonna tab and annotate it and write my thoughts in the margins, and then I'm gonna mail it to my friend, and she's gonna read it, annotate it in a different color with her own thoughts, mail it to the third friend, she's gonna read it, annotate it with her thoughts, and mail it back to me. And I'm gonna be doing the same with her books. So it's like a 3-way annotation gift exchange, and I think it's gonna be a lot of fun, and it's the perfect reason to finally kick myself in the ass and read The City of Brass, because I feel like I'm letting some of y'all down. This next book may come to you as a surprise, but on my TBR is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is a YA mystery thriller type deal, and this is not in my preferred genre at all. It's actually a book I would probably never pick up on my own, except for the fact that I am in a neighborhood book club with some of my girlfriends at home, and once a month we get together for dinner one night and have snacks, and we chat about a book that one of us picked. And the pick for March was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. And I am super excited about this. I love reading books that I normally wouldn't reach for myself, and I think I'm gonna do this on audiobook. I borrowed this copy from my friend. And I'm excited to see what I think about it, especially because it's so different from the books I currently read and review. The last book I hope to God I read this month, because I don't want to be spoiled and I want to be a part of the conversation, but it is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This is book 1 of 4 of the Year of Sanderson and the Secret Projects. This is supposed to be just like gorgeously written. It's got end papers and pictures in it, and I was very graciously sent a copy from Dragonsteel Books themselves. They sent me a whole care package that I could not believe they sent me. I literally shit my pants when I opened the box. But I have the audiobook also waiting for me on Spotify, so I'll be able to co-read when I do this. I would really like to do a dedicated video review for Tress of the Emerald Sea, because Brandon Sanderson is one of my favorite authors. I know a lot of y'all started reading Mistborn or any of his books because of my recommendations, so I just want to make sure I can do that for you. So there you have it. These are all the books I read in February, plus all the books I want to read in March. Tell me what you think. What was your favorite read of February? I'm super excited to read The Rage of Dragons with Fantasy and Friends in March. Thank you for watching. So feel free to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, friends.